Alright, I am back with another update. As you can see, I updated some of the parameters slightly. I also mainly got florist update, so now there's different tiles for the ground. I plan to make it add a little more variant to the ground, but for now it's just a solid color and it's working and it matches up with these tiles here. As well as that, something I forgot I could show you, which I never thought about, was in the camera. I can just drag around the camera to show you what this looks like in the actual game world. So the camera sizing seems to look fairly decent. I don't think I'll need to increase or decrease it by much. This is around the size I was going for. So that's for this update. Now I'm going to work on some variants with the ground. And I've also been planning out how all the systems in this game are going to work, and I'm planning for it to be a more RPG style kind of dungeon crawler where you have skills and abilities that you can train up in, quests you can do, shops you can visit, items you can buy and craft, and all of that sort of thing. So I will continue planning that and keep you updated. So I finished adding in some extra details to the floor here. So as you can see, there's little cracks all around, and if I look around, they get generated, and they are all generated properly using something I'm calling a paintbrush. And the reason I'm calling it a paintbrush is simply because it takes, if I can find it, it takes several different patterns and it will randomly choose one of those patterns and then create it and then paint it like onto the floor itself. So it's not just randomly choosing individual floor tiles, it actually has a pattern of floor tiles that I can choose from and paint onto. As well as that, because of the way it works, I have added to the floor plan a parameter that is called the floor painter count, which determines how many times a pattern has a chance of being produced. So right now the number is 200, which means that 200 times it will choose one of those patterns and randomly paint it somewhere in the world. It is a very big number because there are chances where the painter will try to paint outside of the world, and in that case you won't see it, but it still counts as being painted. So that's why the number is 200, but there obviously isn't 200 individual paint parts around. But other than that, it does look pretty good. If I show you a full view with the camera, you can look around and you can see, I think 200 seems to be a fairly good number. I might need to lower it a little bit, but I do see like some spots it feels a little empty, but other than that, it does seem fine. I may need to diversify it a little by adding it so that there'll always be at least one paint in each room, but I think this will be fine. Alright, so that should do it for that. So I will probably add in doors next so that I don't forget to do that, since I need to, if I want to do doors, I'm going to have to change a bit how the walls are generated. So I'll get working on that. So I got my first player into the game. It doesn't do anything, it's not generated or anything. It's literally just manually placed. The player itself just has a sprite renderer and I just can move it around, and I'm just using this to test to see the scaling of it, to try and get the size of each sprite to kind of look okay with the walls, because as you see, if I come here to this sprite sheet, I could easily change this number here and it will change the scaling. Obviously this scaling that size might be a little too small, but you get the idea. I could change the size of the player pretty easily. So I've just been working on trying to get it to look okay, and I think having the pixel ratio to be 16 per unit seems to look pretty good. So that's what I've been working on. So currently I'm working on creating animations for characters. So I started off by trying the obvious thing, which was animations with the animation editor. And if I run this, it works. But I plan to have many different characters, all of which use the same animation and separate sprites or sprite sheets. And so I was trying to figure out how to change and modify the actual animations in code, like change what sprites each one uses, though it's a lot more difficult than I thought. So I'm going to do what I know best, which is program this myself instead of having to create hundreds of different animations for each different variation of character. So I began working on a character creator screen, which will allow me to easily drag in sprites and modify them as I wish. So here I just have a dynamically changing section where I can put in animations for different sprite sheets. So if I come here, I should be able to just drag these on. Right now obviously I can't because I'm still working on it, so it just looks like it's not selecting anything. I can select these though, so eventually I'll be able to drag on different actual sprite images though. So just want to let you guys know that this video is going to be coming out probably fairly late because I participated in the Game Maker's 20-year game jam, and if you want to check out the game that I worked on, it took me a few days, but I will leave a link to it in the description if you want to download it and play it. This is it here. So I've been spending a lot of this week just working on this and getting this done, so the video will be probably late. I am sorry about that. I am not dead, I promise. And if you're curious, this was actually a game that I decided to do in only 20 lines of code, albeit they are extremely long lines of code. But one object, 20 lines of code, no sprites, just a few sounds and the fonts, and then one room. So very simple game, but it was fun for me. I enjoyed it. But now I will probably start to get back to the actual video for the game I've been working on, and you'll be updated with that right now. I realized at the start of most cuts I say so or alright a lot, so I'm going to try and stop doing that because it was starting to bother me. But I created this template now so that I can drag in a sprite from down here, or a sprite sheet, and drag it into these slots. The first slot is used for the normal walking sprites that the characters can use, and if I drag it in, it'll have a selection of all the front facing sprites that I can select from. As well as that, now I can drag in the fighting animations. So if I drag in 2.5 here, this animation strip, I can click that, and if I shrink this down, you'll see I can see everything. It does look like everything's a little squashed right now, but that's not how it normally is. If I come and I do this, you'll see I actually have my screen split up into 4 views. I only do that because I have a big resolution, so this is what it actually looks like for me when I'm actually using the program. And if I stretch this out, it actually looks fine. It doesn't look as bad as it does in the recording, but again, I use a higher resolution, so I split it up into 4. So let me make this look a little better for you. Actually, I'll just keep it in the full view just for this demonstration. It might be hard for you to see or read things now, but it's fine. So if I come here, this button here will let me toggle through the different animations of the sprite. So here's the idle, here's the walk, there's the front, which doesn't have an animation, but this isn't going to be used very often. It's going to be mainly used for NPCs. The player will only be able to move left and right. Well, look left and right. They can move in all directions, but they only face left and right. Here's the hit. There's 2 separate hit animations, this first one and the second one. I should also probably select the correct character for the front facing sprite. So the second hit, which is a swing. There's a shoot, which is for arrow swings. A die animation, which isn't an animation, but it looks fine. there's two separate cast animations. The first one is the initial cast, which on loop it looks like he's cheering, but once he reaches the end of the frame it goes to this cast hold animation, which can be held for as long as the animation needs to persist for. And then there's this damage, which is just when he gets hit. And this is just a way to preview all of the separate animations. So with this one selected, I can now choose a name for the actual animator that I'm going to be creating. So I was just testing it out, so I called it Joe, but I call it test 01, let's say. And then I press the create button, and it creates this animator object for me. I would usually not edit any of these variables on the right. I would just use it in the script itself. So if I go to my player object that I created here, and I can probably show you this view now. So if I come here, I can take this test object and not do that. Sorry, I was clicking the wrong view. So if I come to the player object and click this and drag it in, I have this variable for the animator, which is just the thing that I just created. Now if I run this, hopefully you can see that it'll work, and it does animate properly. The animation speed that you view in the game doesn't quite match up the animations that are viewed here, but this is just a demonstration of the animations just for viewing purposes. And the code for the player controller that I created was very simple. I can show you right now. So here I have the public character animator that I passed in that I just showed you. Here I also have the sprite renderer, which is just a private variable because I get it in the start method with using getComponent. I take that animator object that I created and set its animation to be hit 1. In the update method, I set it to animate, which is just a function that will let it cycle through all of its frames. And then I set the renderer sprite to equal to the sprite of that animator. And it's simple as that, nothing else to it. I tried to make this object as simple as I possibly could. So most of the actions involving animations are confined within here. And if I wanted to, I could easily just change this to be the walk animation. And now if I come here and I run it now, hopefully it'll load, you'll see that it'll play the walk animation instead of the hit animation. So it works very well, it's very easy to control, and it'll make coding in my future a lot easier. I would have used the actual animation functions that Unity provides for me, but I found that I don't know how to use them very well. They're a little too weird for me, and every time I try to use them, it doesn't work out very well. Plus it's a lot more work to go in and create an animation for every single character that I want. This way it's a lot more dynamic, where I can just come in anytime I need a new character, just come to the character creator and just create a new character slot type. So that's probably going to do it for this episode. I know it probably wasn't the most interesting, didn't add too much, but it was productive. This is going to make programming in the future a lot easier on me, so I'm very excited for this. But that is all. So until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see ya.